Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. You're very welcome to part two. Following on from our last session, which was looking at effective strategies to win and welcome audiences back, today we're going to be focusing on data, visibility and awareness. So just a few housekeeping bits before we begin. We are recording this meeting and it'll be available on the Theatre Forum website after the session. And there will also be a live transcript available today. And we just ask you to please put your microphones on mute until the Q&A at the end or in the breakout sessions. I think that's everything. So now I'm delighted to hand over to Audience Development and Research Consultant, Heather Maitland, and CEO of Indigo, Katie Rains.
Good morning, everybody. How great to see you all again. Fantastic. What we're going to cover today, we've got Lucy, who's going to be having a conversation with me later. Lucy, what are we talking about?
So myself and Heather will have a quick chat about data and how you can use your box office customer data to work to target customer segments effectively. And this is all relates back to some of the segments as well that Heather and Katie spoke about in the last two sessions. I suppose then I'll hand it back to you, Heather, because yourself and Katie will kick into some other themes too.
Absolutely, Katie. We're going to pick up on some of the themes from missing audiences. What are you going to be talking about?
Well, we're really going to pick up on that visibility and awareness bit, Heather. So if you remember the kind of idea that we need to be much more visible to our audiences in real life as well as digitally. So we're going to be talking a little bit about how we could do that to make sure that you're even on the shopping list for people to consider coming back to theatre.
Brilliant. Yeah, because we have to make ourselves top of mind for people. They've forgotten about us, many of them. So we need to get back onto their list of options and then convert that interest into sales. So that's our set of topics. Let's kick off by talking about the data bit. And I think this is so interesting, that what Missing Audiences has really said to us is that we need to focus on the 49% of our ticket buyers who haven't been back or have been back to culture, but not to us. And then the 51% who have been back, but we need to encourage at least a third of them to come as often as they did before. And that's actually about, I think, about being strategic. We can't do what we normally do, which is pick out mailings of people who've been to something similar recently. I mean, I did some maths, and if you've got quite a big data set, you've got a 1 in 2 chance of picking out someone who's a frequent attender if you do it that way. Literally, somebody who comes 6 or more times. Every time you do a mailing, you've pretty much got a 1 in 2 chance of picking them. You've only got a 1 in 10 chance of picking those occasional ticket buyers who haven't been back yet. And if they come less often than once a year or they've lapsed, you've got no chance at all. So actually, we need to do something strategic and look at our data over a period of time. So look at our customer data set and work with them over a period of time. And that requires a kind of different approach to the data set. Lucy, what are the things we have to bear in mind if we want to be able to do that, to have a clean, usable data set?
So I think this is something that we briefly picked up at the last session as well, looking at, a database health check. And as daunting as that sounds, it sounds like it's something that we could find some kind of, I suppose, top tricks or tips for doing that. A big focus, I think, going forward will be around using categories, using tags in a different way than we've ever used them before. And some of those will definitely be looking at the two themes that Heather and Katie are pressing, you know, as urgent, which is recency and frequency. I think the most important thing as well to think about our data is, you know, we like to think that we're either strategy driven or our teams are data driven. And either way that you're using your data, the most important thing to remember is it's a representation of what you're doing, and it's in real time as well. So before we might have gone back on our data over a period of 2 years or 3 years to try and find our most loyal attendees. Now we're probably trying to close in that gap a little bit more because things have changed quite quickly. So it's about making it more relevant, I think, as well, for when we do get to the stage of how do we categorize our customers based on how they're attending, and then to get down deeper and to kind of touch in on some of the segments as well, your butterflies, your angels, and your sniffers that yourself and Katie presented at the main forum at the Peacock.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm finding, I'm working with a cluster of organizations looking really deep into their data, and it's really hard. And I think we've given ourselves a huge task by not talking to our box office about how they collect the data. It's so much easier if we put the tags and the categories on at the time we capture the data. So people are doing all these amazing and imaginative things to flag up company comps and to staff members and guests and media, you know, the press. But they're not ways of flagging up that the system recognizes. I've even got one organization I'm working with who simply put a 1 in all the address fields in order to flag up do not use. Wouldn't it be easier to have a category that says press or staff or whatever? Because then as marketers, we can just exclude them when we do the extraction, rather than having to faff about afterwards for hours on end, which is what I seem to be doing a lot of at the moment with people's data sets.
Definitely. And just on that example as well, Heather, you know, I know we will be speaking about this, you know, the B word brochures, just before anyone thinks it's something else. But you know, some of the customers that we've been speaking with, yeah, I think it's an organic thing that's happening at the moment. I think it's fair to say, you know, if we asked for kind of hands up, who's been diving into their data recently, who's been looking at it and wondering, you know, to what quality is my database at the moment? I'm sure it's something that everyone is doing, regardless if you're sitting at the box office or you're within marketing. But things like pulling out, you know, a customer, just running a report and having a look based on, you know, frequency and attendance, even over the past 3 or 6 months. You know, if you're pulling up customer records and you have 5 addresses for one customer and you're planning on doing a brochure launch, I would use that as a sign that, you know, it's time to get a little bit more strategic about some of the things that we're doing, and to really use this period as a time to get in and to make your database better than it has ever been before. But bearing in mind, it's always going to be something that's iterative. You know, it'll always require work. It's like the NCT. Once your car gets to the stage where you need to be doing your NCT every couple of years, you need to be going in, you need to be checking the oil, you need to be checking the windscreen wipers and the mechanics as much as you can. So that's probably something as well that we should be looking at going forward, or like, what are the best practices? What are the best approaches to take from your audience database? Like, how can you keep it to whatever that level is that you're able to bring it to? You know, it'll be different for so many different organizations depending on your capacity, but what is that minimum level that we should be at the moment, and how will that help us going forward?
Absolutely. And I think also what Missing Audiences is telling us is that we need to do tailored communication, because people are signaling to us by their behavior that they've got different kinds of anxieties. They need different kinds of reassurances and different kinds of reasons. So I think we can no longer just rely on doing the please, I hope it's not weekly email, because we know from all the research that weekly is too often, way too often. The absolutely most frequent is fortnightly, but even that I think annoys people. So we need to be more tailored. What's the best way of starting to think strategically about how you split up, how you segment your data?
Actually, that's a really good question. I was just making sure you were throwing it at me there. Because I think a lot of organizations probably do this in a very similar way. I feel like this would have been a great poll, actually, or maybe something that we can come back with. You know, are we still looking at where we segment our communications based on genre? You know, are they practices that we're still doing? Because I think that's something that's quite traditional. And Katie, this is something that you would have been definitely looking at. Are we changing that now? You know, have we moved away from genre? Is it about something else? Is it about the relationship of attending, the experience in itself of attending, you know, your organization, attending your theatre or attending your venue? Because we know the communications that matter to audience members at the moment aren't necessarily program specific. It's monetary and it's health reassurances. They want to know that you're going the extra level to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, because if they haven't been back yet because they feel too nervous to come back or whatever the reasons are, sending them weekly emails with a whole range of stuff in your program, or even just stuff about one genre, which they used to come to before, it's going to be completely irrelevant to them, because actually for them, they still need to be persuaded to come back at all. So for me, the sort of very basic segmentation would be, have they been back at all since COVID or not? Because if they have been back, then they may be more open to persuasion about the different things you've got in your program. But if they haven't, it's either the reassurances to come back, or it might even be, you know, if you've got box office staff who are sitting there ringing some of them up and going, can we, you know, have we got the right address to send the brochure to? You know, what can we do? Why haven't you been back? Maybe not asking it like that, but just sort of having a chat with them. We'd love to see you. You know, where have you been? What have you been up to? Would you like to hear from us? Can we just check we've got the right details for you? And it could be as basic as that. I know you haven't all got, you know, tons of box office resource, but if there are people that could do that, that might be as good as, if not better, than bombarding people with emails about the program when they're just not there yet.
Yeah, definitely. I know we could use the interaction button. Just out of curiosity, has anyone changed their approach, rather, you know, and segmented audiences, you know, previously potentially on genre and is now looking at programs like this? I can have a quick check just to see if any hands are gone up. If no hands go up, I presume that's the answer to the question. So this could be something already, like a key takeaway that we've gained within the first short 10 minutes of this session.
So if you'd like to use the reactions button to stick your hand up if you have changed the way that you look at your data.
We won't call upon you just yet. Oh, Aoife.
Aoife, brilliant. I mean, the other thing maybe to think about is, you know, rather than the thinking either, oh, we've got this sort of show on, so let's just talk to all the people that came to that type of show, or these are the people that were previously coming very frequently, so let's try and sell them some sort of package with lots of things in it. I think our objective with every single customer has to be just to get them to book for the next thing, and to get them to book for the next thing as soon as possible, even if it's in the future, quite a long way in the future. It's that intention and their action, which I know we're going to talk about later, Heather, in terms of turning that awareness into action.
Absolutely. So it's getting people to come back. I've been doing, in my deep dives, looking at what happens to audiences and to come back. In the likelihood of them drops to a quarter from 3/4. So immediately they're going to come back the following year, most of them.
Yeah.
If you then get them to come back the following year, the proportion lapsing after is around 15%. So getting them to come to the next thing is absolutely the key to retention.
And my rule of thumb when I was working in a venue was always, I've got to get them to rebook within 6 months of them having visited. Not necessarily reattend, but actually chase in a booking from them within 6 months of them attending.
Yeah, because they're not suddenly going to go from I've not been back to, oh, I'm going to come every week. You know, so we need to leave a gap. I think a lot of us make the mistake where we tell them about something in a couple of weeks' time. It needs to be something a bit further away than that. Yeah, and not to make the choice too complicated, because I think a lot of audiences are saying they find it very difficult to choose. So, you know, the brochure is not the answer. The great long listings email is not the answer. We need to tailor it. Brilliant. Does anyone have any comments on that? Or do you have any questions about using data? Let's not get specific about reports, because I'm delighted to say that Lucia and I are going to do a double act in mid-August, where we talk with and start a conversation with all the Ticketsolve users about how we can make our data work for us much harder in this post-COVID world.
Definitely.
So
Oh, sorry, Heather, and just to say the Ticketsolve workshops as well have come up, and I'll drop a link in now with some of the resources that we're sharing as well. It's all gathered on a blog, but Ticketsolve workshops are there this summer for, the user side of Ticketsolve, and this session with Heather will very much be towards kind of building blocks again of this is I'm borrowing from Katie's term yesterday, kind of looking at a new lens of arts marketing now. So that's just the difference between our workshops and then also the session that'll be coming up mid-August.
Brilliant. Oh, and thanks for putting those resources in chat, Lucy. That's great.
No worries.
Questions, comments, concerns? It's your turn. I'm interested in particular if anyone's got particular ways in which they collaborate with the team actually selling tickets to improve the quality of data, the usability of data. How do you work with your ticket sales team? Somebody give us an example. Don't make me pick you. No, total silence. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about tailored communications. Let's talk about how we can engage the right audiences with the right reassurances. Katie, what's your experience of effective ways of doing this?
Well, for a start, there are certain reassurances that different types of audiences are likely to need more than others. So we know from our research, for example, that younger people, the key reassurance for them is the social reassurance. They need to know that they're going to have a good time when they come. They need to know if the bar's open. They need to know if they can meet their friends, or if they all have to stand in a separate bubble. I know it's a lot of it has changed, but they need to be reassured that all of that is going to be possible for them. Family audiences are far more, they need far more reassurance around the financial aspects of it. So for them, it's about knowing what happens if they have to cancel, or if the show is cancelled due to COVID, or whatever it is. So they are very wary of parting with cash up front and not knowing and not being reassured enough what's going to happen if there's any unforeseen circumstances. And the older audiences, who were previously the most frequent audiences, are the most likely to need the health and safety reassurance. I went to the Abbey the other night with an elderly relative, and she needed a lot of, she was fully masked up, and she needed a lot of reassurance from me in person to even get her through the door. And it was all dealt with really well in the Abbey, and it was fantastic, great show. But it was she needed that personal reassurance from me, being the person taking her to the event. So, and it actually surprised me how much of that she needed coaxing, even having agreed a few weeks ago to go and see the show. So I think it's important to bear in mind that different audiences need these different reassurances, and then about when and how to do that, you know, on your websites or in your communications. You will know those audiences, you'll know people in your own audiences that fall into those categories, about when and how it's best to communicate with them. But they are going to need a lot of that upfront, even in deciding to book a ticket. So they're not going to need it once they are going to need it once they've booked a ticket in terms of the practicalities of it. But a lot of these reassurances need to be front and centre. I do worry that going into the autumn, the health and safety thing might have to come back up again for all audiences. But I think at the moment where we are, it seems to be those are the kind of general rules of thumb, if that helps, Heather.
Yeah, $64,000 question. How do you spot a family?
Well, hopefully you're coding whether they've bought children's tickets or not on your system.
Ooh. Okay, so
goes back to tagging.
A complete pain, and asking the person who sets up events on your box office not to do a general conc. Yeah, so actually split up the concessions into different types, so you can actually see whether that concession is for a family or not, or for a child or not. Absolutely. Do you think there's a difference in terms of age group, in terms of level of anxiety? Age group of the children, I mean, sorry.
Level of, well, it's the financial reassurance. So it's not a level of anxiety about anything other than the finances. So it's really just the outlay. So I'm not sure it is really. I'm not sure that there is much difference. You've got to buy 4 tickets or 5 tickets rather than buying 2, and it's a big outlay.
Yep. So it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. You don't even need to do a selection by type of family event. It's just,
I don't think so. No.
Have they bought a child ticket or a
concession
ticket
for a young person or a child? Yeah.
Yeah. What about that younger audience that needs the social reassurance? How do we spot them in our systems?
Oh, I think that's more difficult, isn't it? It's probably going to be more product led, I would guess. Would be my guess, that, you know, people have been to certain types of events and where, you know, the age profile is younger because you've literally seen them. So it's maybe doing it that way. So I know some organizations do have kind of 16 to 25 schemes, but when I talk about younger audiences here, I'm probably talking about under 35s.
Yeah, that's certainly what the missing audiences data is telling you, isn't it?
Yeah,
under 35s. Yeah. Cool. And it's flavor and experience, you know, is the event that they've been to before something that where the social experience is important, you know, more important than anything else. Yeah. Okay. And what about the older audiences? How do we spot them?
As a general rule of thumb, they were your previous frequent attenders, weren't they? Your core audience, the people that were coming very frequently, closest to you. They're probably more local, you know, they probably are, because they're coming that frequently. They probably are living within a more local vicinity. Yeah, so again, spotting them is probably by frequency, but it's their frequency pre-COVID, not their frequency since COVID.
Yeah, okay. Has anyone been targeting family audiences this season? Sinead, tell us what you've been doing.
Apologies, just first off, because there's some digging roads going on behind me, but yeah, we have just recently targeted family audiences and kind of taking on board some of the feedback from Theatre Forum and the surveys. So we have a show coming up, Potted Potter. It's a Harry Potter parody, and we know it's a big family show for summer for us. And what we have done is we've targeted our Panto audience from last year, and we've targeted them specifically with an offer to come and see Potted Potter this summer. So drawing on the audience that we have subscribed, reaching out to them thanking them for supporting us and coming to see our Panto Aladdin last year, and giving them a special offer discount for a limited 1 week period. And what we did is then we included in the e-news a kind of a little book with confidence note, which did say, you know, we know it's still uncertain times and it can be difficult to make plans, and just kind of point them towards our refund and exchange policy. So far, I've just literally looked, and so far we've had, that went out on Wednesday last week, I think it was, and the coupon or the code is valid until this Friday. So far there's been 2 usages, so not huge amounts, but it's definitely, I would say, helped with I guess in visibility of it, so, you know, and it's specifically targeting that audience, so not a huge great result from it so far, but yeah,
yeah, sometimes people don't take advantage of the actual offer, but they do book. So it would be really interesting to see if they booked as well as seeing if they use the coupon element. Yeah, very interesting. Anybody else being targeting families? That's I can't see any hands waving. No. Okay, cool. And the other issue was doing this visibly, so reassuring audiences visibly. And we talked a lot last time about channels that were visible, and they were quite often the old-fashioned channels. I mean, I made a list just off the top of my head of what audiences are telling me is visible, you know, if they've not been back and they're not networked into the art centres or theatres or companies, and they're saying word of mouth at the top of the list still. So that's quite interesting. I think it'd be good to have a conversation shortly about how you generate word of mouth, but it's posters, it's flyers, and it's brochures in public places, it's local media, and they're saying that features grab their attention and make them think about what you do, not the ads, which kind of just seem to go over the top of their heads. Banners, notice boards, it's really old-fashioned stuff. Community publications was a big one. Community Facebook pages, other people's websites, so they are engaging online. It's just we're not on their list of options, so they're not engaging with us, those missing people at the moment. So getting visible in other people's kind of shop windows, as it were, online shop windows, is really, really important. And then I think we underestimate social search engine optimization. So it's worth just thinking about search engine optimization and doing a health check about that, just to see if they're looking for things to do, whether you are visible or not. What audiences are telling me that we're not visible on is social media. So algorithms look for things that people react to. And the trouble is they've had 2.5 years of not having very much to react to. So the algorithms are saying, these people are no longer interested in arts organisations. And certainly I'm not getting anything at all from all the Irish arts organisations that I follow. That's partly because if you're doing advertising, I'm not in the right geographic area, but I'm not getting anything organic either. I'm not getting, you know, your usual posts. And I think one of our problems is that we've lost touch with the social side of social media. You know, it's social. What we do is we announce events on social media, but actually shareability is really, really, really important. I mean, the blessed Susan Hallam, some of you will remember her. She worked with us all through Theatre Forum for 3 or 4 years and just completely changed how good we were at online marketing, but she always says 5 social posts for everything you want to sell, for every 1 post you want to sell. So 5 shareable social things for every event announcement, and we're certainly not doing that. The only trouble with these old-fashioned channels is that there's this huge kind of clash, as Katie pointed out last time we talked, huge clash with our desire to be sustainable. So Sive from Linetree, you've been thinking about this a lot, haven't you? Can you tell us what you've been doing to try and square that circle, square that circle, whatever it is?
Absolutely. So I'm Sive from Linetree Theatre Belltable, and just this morning we sent our most recent season programme to print. Finally, a big relief to get that off. But we hadn't obviously done one since spring of 2020, and our autumn season programme is the biggest one. So the last big one, bumper one that we did was 2019, and we have found it has made a huge difference that we haven't had a physical program to give to people, even though we're killing ourselves with email and social and everything we've been talking about. People want a physical brochure in their hand, and we have done flyers, but obviously you can't put as much information on a flyer. We've done listings flyers, and it's just the title, and you're wondering, are people understanding what the show is if they're just reading the title on a flyer? So yeah, we're back with our season program this year, and we're delighted to be finally gone to print and hopefully have it in a few weeks. So can I share my screen, because it might be handier if I give you a visual. Just a second. So basically I actually have one here of our old ones. Our usual season program, can you see it? It's like colorful, it's kind of glossy, loads of ink, loads of images. But we are obviously trying to be a bit more sustainable. So in a bid to be more sustainable for this particular season program, let me see, can I share now?
You should be able to.
Yeah, I have it now. Hopefully you can see that. So this is low res, but it will be nice and sharp when we print. We've gone for a mainly white background, less ink. We worked with our great designers at Detail Factory, and they have come up with this really clever design that we can still have images, but they're not taking up, the whole page. So this is our cover. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. We have our selection of images, and then this is our 10th anniversary branding is this kind of gold color. We're stepping away from our bold colors for this particular year. And as we had discussed, we have our reassurances text. So we put in that everyone can get a refund if we cancel a show. Reconnecting with the Arts is the title on this page. So we're kind of asking people to reconnect with us. We have our timeline throughout the years of some kind of major events that we've had over the past 10 years. We have a note from Louise that again kind of touches on the sustainability and that we want to welcome everyone back. And we've also put a little tag there saying this program is recyclable. Because our old programs were kind of glossy and a laminated cover, they don't feel recyclable. It doesn't really feel like you should put them into your recycling bin. This one will feel a bit more earthy. That's the feel we were going for, so that people will feel it and say, oh, this is totally, untreated paper. It can go into my recycling bin. So we have also, it won't be visible to you now, but the typeface that we've used uses less ink. That came from our graphic designer as a suggestion. And what else? So this is our page with events, I suppose. You can see we've used less ink in that we're using smaller images, but they're still kind of interesting. We have a QR code linking to each page. So we not only had to get all the information from upcoming events, we had to get them up on sale so that we can link to the webpage. So that was a real team effort. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. It's a way simpler design, but we still wanted it to have a real premium feel because we want people to hopefully hang on to this brochure as the 10th anniversary bumper edition. And it won't really be visible here, but obviously this is our Linetree Theatre page, and when you flip, it'll be upside down now in this, but our Belltable program is on the back. So we have the program for both venues on there. But yeah, that's about it. If anyone has any questions, let me know. But we're really happy with the design, and we think we got that premium feel, and that it feels a bit special for our 10th anniversary, but while being more sustainable along the way.
What have you done in terms of quantities? Has that changed? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So we found when we got our quotes from the printers and looked at our budgets, everything has nearly doubled. Paper has gone through the roof. So normally we would do a mail out to people who have opted in to receive the program. So we would send that out through An Post, and then we'd also do a mail drop that would go to specific areas. We've had to completely leave the mail drop for this time round, and we're mailing out for people who've opted in. We're sending out about 5,000 kind of, to say, you know, you've opted in, you've booked a ticket with us before, we're sending you out a program in the post, and then we'll have about another 15,000 that we have a local distributor that will just get them out there in public places and hope for the best. But no, it has had a major effect on budgets and quantities. We're doing about 2/3 of what we hope to do, and we're not doing that mail out. So yeah, it's a big difference. But we are hoping that after building up everything online over the past few years, that we'll be kind of hitting both audiences with the physical brochure, and then we'll still have a robust social campaign going alongside it.
We've got somebody asking, Janice asking, what size is the program?
It's A6. Yeah, that's A6, isn't it? Yeah.
A6.
A6.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's small enough, but
Nice.
we can fit quite a lot on there, and it's great with the QR codes as well, that we can kind of put not the minimal amount of information, but for example, some festivals we have coming to Belltable, they're all very last minute with details and times, so we can just put in the titles and the dates, and then, you know, click on the or scan the QR code for more information, and then we can update the web page. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility, because once obviously something goes to print, it's permanent, but you can update online.
How easy is it to do the QR code thing? Is it something we could all do?
Yeah, like, well, our designer has generated the QR code, but we generate our own on Canva as well. I don't know if anyone, if you're using the premium version of Canva, you can create your own QR codes. And the only issue with using QR codes is that you have to be so organized and have something to link it to. So that was probably the biggest challenge, but the team has been great. And for some of them aren't live yet, but we have the web page up, but you can't actually book a ticket yet. So if there are some events that can't go on sale yet for any reason, that's a way around it, to kind of have a coming soon web page, just so that it links to something. Because what you don't want is them to scan the QR code and it links to a broken page. But yeah, I hope it's worked well anyway in the testing. So hopefully it will in practice as well.
Brilliant. Katie, last time we talked, you had some thoughts about the kind of print that we need now to be visible, but to respond to what's going on in audiences' heads. Do you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we might need some more generic presence, advertising and presence that basically just tells people that we're back, and then as you're doing, put QR codes on things to drive them to the detail. I don't think printing lots of things with lots and lots of listings is where we need to be at the moment. I think it's about reminding people you're there, reassuring them, big splash, we're back. And actually, if you were able to produce some generic stuff that could be used over quite a period of time, you know, it doesn't need to be season specific necessarily. I mean, do you want me to show a couple of examples I've got from Blackpool, or do you want me to save those?
Yeah, let's look at them now. That would be great.
I've only got 2 slides. Let me quickly just show you. So this is a theatre in Blackpool. Let me just go on to here. They have quite a standard programme. They're not a producing theatre, but they do loads of outdoor visibility stuff, and you know, most of it is generic. You can see the one on the right does have a selection of shows in it specifically, but most of their stuff is actually generic and just telling people that they're on sale, and really bright colours. These are we think that these are their volunteers or their youth theatre, don't we, Heather? Who are walking around with these sandwich boards on, walking around and giving out leaflets and brochures and just raising the profile. And I mean, they do taxi ads and stuff like that as well, but they're quite expensive. I don't know where they find the budget for all this from, to be honest, but I think the generic approach to it and the profile raising and the just really simple approach is interesting. So I'm going to stop sharing that now.
I thought that that strapline they had, bringing back the good times, is really useful. That's a great message about all those shows. Yeah. Oh, interesting. What is anybody doing generic messaging? You know, is anybody doing this kind of talking about your organization and what a lovely organization it is to engage with, as opposed to selling individual shows? Emma, did you just wave your hand?
Yeah, hiya. I just worked with Clonmel Junction Arts Festival over the last few weeks, or last few months really. And it's part of a project I'm doing with Clonmel Junction Arts Festival, Finding a Voice Festival and South Tipperary Arts Centre to build audiences for the region. So we did a campaign just before Junction Festival, which was a generic arts campaign for the region. And it kind of brought the message of Junction Festival, which is from Plays About Hurling to Arthouse Films, onto some street banners along the main street. So we brought that message right through then the marketing as well, on our website, on our social media, and it worked really, really well.
Tell us the message again.
So the tagline I used was from Plays About Hurling to Arthouse Films. And we had a few different messages for the three organisations, you know, like festival about classical music to tastefully done mouth juggling. So it's kind of different, highbrow, lowbrow. That was the idea, that it would please everyone kind of thing. But it was more about the breadth of what's on in the region, you know, that there's so much going on. We've got so many interesting things, and are you coming into it? You know, that was the question we posed.
Yeah, banners is an interesting choice. Why banners?
Well, we worked with the local council and we had the positions for free. So it was just printing costs that we had to cough up. So it became like, it was quite cost effective. And because nobody else is using those banners, they are going to stay there for the foreseeable future until somebody else comes along and requests it. So because they aren't specific, you know, there's no dates, just the message, the three logos from the two organizations and a hashtag. So they don't go out of date. We could have them up next year. We could put them back up again. So it became quite a cost-effective campaign.
Oh, brilliant. That's great. That is a simple, I mean, I'm sure it was not simple to make happen, but it's a simple idea that's just so effective, isn't it? That really clear message. Somebody else doing generic, you know, organization level marketing. Go on, somebody volunteer.
Hello, sorry, I'm Jackie from Wexford Arts Centre. We're currently closed, so we're not actually marketing our own events, but we did a large poster, a corrie board, that we put in our outdoor window. We've got a poster board, so that people know that we're still doing things, even though we're not doing them in the building. So just just a couple of images of events that are going on, but with no dates, and then the QR codes then, so that they can go to the website, and then the contact details then, so that if they want to get in touch.
Yeah, cool. That's great. That, again, really simple idea, but so visible, because you're on the junction, aren't you? You've
yes.
got that amazing window with lots of footfall. Brilliant. Someone else, that kind of institutional, organizational level marketing.
I don't mind Heather jumping in there, if that's okay.
Yeah,
and
go for it.
You can hear me okay, yeah. Just when we opened up there at the start of the summer, we went down the generic marketing with live shows are back, and did a collage of images of what was coming up rather than actual shows and dates of what is coming up. We got permission again from the council to put that hoarding along the prom on Bray Beach. Sorry, I'm Aoife from Mermaid Arts Centre, I should say. So we have the promenade in Bray where there's obviously a lot of footfall with people walking along the beach. So we did our live shows are back campaign on hoarding there. Again, we got permission from the council for that as temporary signage, and also on the bandstand in Bray. And we tied that in with, you know, those big belly solar bins. We have some slots of those around the town. So we did the same artwork on those to try and just kind of push the brand of Mermaid that we're back open and that live shows are back. And that's something maybe I'll talk about a little bit later, how we're trying to improve our visibility with that now coming into the new season. But that definitely had an effect, just to kind of splash around the town and remind people that we're there. So,
oh, brilliant. I think actually it might be a good idea for you to talk about how you're doing that now, and then what we'll do is go to a breakout after this.
Okay.
Compare notes. Yeah.
Sure. Well, just to summarize briefly, we've spent the last, I suppose, 8 months really doing a lot of audience research with Heather Maitland. We've used our TicketSolve database for some extractions and analysis. We've also put out a survey to all of our customers and then done some in-depth focus groups. And it's been really, really interesting for us to see what audiences think of us and how front of mind we are with them, or what we think that we're front of mind with them, but we're actually not on their radar at all. When we talk to them, they know us, they love us, but they're not booking tickets and they're not coming to us. So it's been really, really interesting, that whole analysis process, and doing a lot of self-reflection on what we've been doing for the past few years, combined with the whole COVID effect and people's reluctance to book. You know, we've been craving getting back to this big, thick brochure, but actually the focus groups have steered us now in a completely different way. And we're trialing a more slimline flyer. Basically, the feedback we have got is that people are almost overwhelmed with the choice of what's on in Mermaid, and with the amount of events and the information. We're trying to combine all that with other learnings we have about using plain English. And so basically, we're distilling that down now into 30-word killer copy, we're calling it, which is, what is this show? As you all know in marketing, you're really overwhelmed with the amount of information you're getting in. The shows you have to put online, you're chasing copy, chasing image, resizing image, trying to get a better quality image, and trying to do the whole operational side of just getting the show up on sale and then breathing out going, oh, thank God, now I've posted to socials, it's out there. You know, without sometimes, you know, I'm guilty of this, actually reading the copy and like, what is this show? Is it dance? Is it theatre? You know, so we're putting a lot of time now into actually distilling the copy down into 30 words that we think people will understand. We're printing the brochure now is more flyer version, which allows us to print more. I love your idea of recyclable paper and the little stamp. I might have to nick that side. But we're going to try and put, I say going to because we're kind of quiet now over the summer. We don't have that much theatre and that in. So, but from September on, we're really, really busy right up to the end of December. So our plan is to become more visible around the town by printing more of these generic small brochures, focusing, sorry, not generic, they're just slimline with a 30-word killer copy on everything, which is the feedback we've got from the focus groups. Putting it out around the town in more places if possible. So increasing our print run because it's not such a thick brochure. Also being a bit more strategic who we post that flyer to, because as you all know, the price of postage has really been killing our marketing budget. And also then attaching that return on investment TicketSolve report that you can do, which there's a great video, which is actually really, really easy to follow. And then analyzing who's booking, who's getting that. We're posting out this flyer and are they actually booking from it? So We also have some generic signage at the front of Mermaid. I don't know if you're familiar with Mermaid, but up on Main Street, there's a big billboard that's been in position for years now. And I kind of think, oh, that's great. Look, it has Tom Crean on it. It has a ballet dancer. It looks lovely. It's kind of tipped all our genres and it has our website. But actually other people have come in and said they're so used to looking at it that it's invisible now. So it's kind of made me think like, okay, maybe we need to revamp that as well. Again, it would be more sustainable. It's kind of permanent then for another 2 years, but maybe that's something we need to factor in, is changing that artwork in line with our big belly bins and our signage along the beach. Yeah, so that's really trying to get more front of mind with our customers through really every time they go for a coffee or to the hairdresser or to the dentist, that Mermaid flyer is really there. Rather than trying to kill ourselves with marketing to people who, you know, are further afield in the county and maybe have no intention of coming. So we're doing a lot of self-reflection and analysis. We also have taken on board what the research has shown us about, you know, us being delighted that a show is back in Mermaid again and popping that up on social media. And the next day we're delighted to have another show in, and here's the link to the tickets. The next day we might be thrilled to have somebody back, but really we're not getting any shares, very few likes on our social media for those kind of posts. So we're trying to change it up a bit. It's difficult, you know, we're trying to brainstorm and come up with maybe more quirky things, but you're also under huge pressure, not just to get shows up for sale, but you have incoming shows ringing you looking to see why your ticket sales are so sluggish. What are you doing? You haven't done any social media posts, you know. So then you're like, oh, fine, we're delighted you're back. You know, it's up there, done. But we recently had Sharon Shannon in, and I knew there was a little girl coming to the show who plays the accordion and who's a big fan. So I tied in with Sharon's manager that she could meet Sharon Shannon. She comes out into the foyer to sign CDs anyway, but I asked the parents, could we get some photos, which we did, and we put up on social media. And this was a Bray family as well. So this actually got us quite a few shares, and we put it into the local paper as well. So it's a very small example, but we're trying to think a little bit more like that to become more front of mind and more visible with our customers. So yeah, so a lot of learnings, and we're still at the starting post. As I say, a lot of this will kick in from September onwards. So it'll be really interesting to do the analysis and then maybe decide to change again, you know, but to actually feel also for our own, for the sustainability of marketing teams around the country, it's not sustainable to keep going at the pace we're going with the amount of shows and people ringing about ticket sales. And then you blame COVID, and then you get on Colleen Kunin and it sells out 3 nights in a row, and you go, feck it, they're coming to that, but they're not coming to the stuff. You know, they've just blown my argument out of the water.
Oh,
it's COVID related, you know, so there can be a huge amount of pressure. And I think just taking a step back and trying a few things every month and analysing them is much more sustainable for all of us. So,
oh, that's brilliant, Aoife. Thanks
sorry,
so much. Thank you so much for telling us all about that, especially as you're on holiday and sitting in a car park at the moment, because it's the only place you could get a signal. Thank you, thank you. Lucy, tell us about this return on investment report.
Sorry, lots of stages to unmute myself there. Slight panic. Yeah, so Aoife, you were, am I right that you were referencing one of the Ticketsolve Academy videos that's on Zendesk?
Yeah, the one where basically you take your extraction of who you're going to send your brochure to, and then you do another extraction where you're basically tracking the people that got your brochure and their bookings. So I could see day by day from when the brochure landed, I could download to Excel how many tickets we're selling, revenue, and basically who's booking what directly from. Of course, they might have seen an ad and booked, but I knew that they got the brochure in the days you know, so you could really tie the bookings in to that exact Ticketsolve extraction, which, you know, the post is so expensive and it's such a huge chunk of the marketing budget that you just, you know, party goes, oh, we should send everybody the brochure because then they might book. But really, you know, it has to make sense financially, because we're kind of starting to think we might be better now printing more brochures and putting them into hairdressers than targeting everybody who opted in for the mailing list over the past 10 years and posting out a full envelope out to them that probably goes straight into the recycling, you know. So that's why that return on investment. And like the brochure we put out was kind of our May, June, there was a lot of local art, so it wasn't really a good example. I think our September to an October flyer will be more revealing with that return on investment attached to it, where we can see how much was actually generated in income or ticket sales from that particular extraction, and should we narrow it down and post less or more?
It's
you know?
Such a confidence boost to track whether what you're doing is working, because you can either stop worrying or you can do something about it. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Aoife. Katie.
Can I just add something to that? I think that absolutely brilliant doing the return on investment. I think the key to it is knowing who it's working for and who it isn't, as you've said. So it's kind of, because what happens is you post it out and sales go up. So everybody goes, oh, the brochure's brilliant, so we should definitely do more brochures. And actually, if you could even take that one step further by pulling two different lists and coding them separately and then tracking those. So you could, for example, do the people who have been back since COVID and the people who haven't, or the people who used to come more frequently and the people who have come for the first time. You could just sort of split it and then track that, because when you work out then who the brochure's working for and who it isn't, you can hone it down even more. So you're still seeing the big spike in sales, but you're not wasting lots of brochures and you're saving the planet and stuff. So I think what you're doing is brilliant.
And we'll go into lots of detail about how you actually go about doing it in this session, in mid online session in mid-August. People with other ticketing systems, I know there's loads of resources and loads of forums. So, you know, asking these questions, if you don't know how to do it on your system, asking in that network's a really, really good thing to do. Brilliant. Shall we just have a look at give you a chance to actually talk to each other about what you want to do next? You know, what actions are you going to do to make your organization's communications more effective, more visible, and more targeted and more effective? Irma's going to be absolutely lovely and put you into little rooms. If you could put your thoughts into chat as a group, so point someone to do that and then copy and paste it into the main chat when you get back. We'll circulate it. So make notes in chat and then stick that in the main chat. Brilliant. Yeah. There's something very physical about people popping back on the screen, isn't there? It is really lovely.
Brilliant. They're all coming back now. Fantastic. Great. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you. I hope there were some good conversations going on there. Okay, cool. I think we've got nearly got everyone back. So if you were the designated scribe in your group, I wonder if you could pop into the chat anything that people committed to doing, or yes, because that's what we were asking you to do. What are you committing to doing to make your organization more visible and get more awareness with your audiences? So if there's anything that you're able to share in there. Meanwhile, if there's anyone who wants to share something and unmute themselves and share with us, that would be brilliant. Really interested to see what people are coming up with.
I'm just popping into the chat from our group 1. We spoke more about slowing down the pace and being a bit more less disposable with the information, I guess, and being very clearly spelling things out, just because especially in marketing, we know we get lots of information, we know what we're doing, we're pushing things out, but actually maybe we need to explain it a bit better, get that killer copy out and really be very clear about things that we're doing and explaining, using alt text for images as well. And maybe that will help punctuate and kind of get the message to the right people. So I think that was one of the main things.
Brilliant. So kind of cutting stuff away and being more focused and succinct, which is really hard. I mean, there's a great, apologies, but Winston Churchill quote that I use regularly, which is, "I'm really sorry this isn't shorter, but I ran out of time." And that kind of whittling process of getting something shorter and simpler does take more time, unfortunately, but it cuts through much better. So that's really interesting. Let's see what else we've got. People appreciate, Sinead saying, people appreciate a personalised message. We need to look at change to targeting by genre, resource issues. Yes, absolutely. So there's going to be a real trade-off there, is there, between simplifying and segmenting, but that taking more time. Working on the killer copy, brilliant. Socials, refining and simplifying the language, again. Exploring QR codes, definitely. I'm definitely going to do more QR code stuff after today. Generic advertising, joined up marketing among venues for tours. Okay, so is that where venues who are taking the same show across tour maybe get together and try and figure out ways of working together or doing similar things?
Yeah, that was the thoughts behind that maybe pooling resources and doing something more generic about the whole tour.
Brilliant. That would be really good.
Can I just say something about genres very quickly? Looking at across the board, it's very similar between festivals and art centres and theatres. The idea that people are a genre audience is not a really terribly useful one. And what I'm looking at the moment is between 10 and 15% of ticket buyers in a cleaned data set, so of households, come more than once and only see one art form, even when those art forms are really, really broad. So it's a tiny, tiny proportion of our audience. The thing that's then really scary is realizing that 70+% of the audience only come once a year. And you know, how can you tell what genre they're interested in? They've only been once.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I do tend to see, Heather, in the data that I look at, that genre patterns don't follow, but types of work do. So like contemporary work, so somebody who's into contemporary dance would probably also be into new writing and contemporary visual art. And somebody who's into sort of classic literature, that they would perhaps also be more open to classical music and those sorts of things. So I tend to see it more in those kind of bubbles than I do in genres.
It's like flavors, isn't it? Rather than genre or even style. It's the flavor of the experience. Oh, cool. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. So visibility is key. Yes, absolutely. Plain English. Brilliant. Would highly recommend. Brilliant. General marketing about your venue. Yes. Audience testimonials. I love audience testimonials, especially if you can get a range of audiences doing them. And artist performer quotes about performing. Yeah, it's that. It's what you were saying earlier about Aoife, I think, what you were saying about that kind of personal connection, having the little girl with the accordion. And having a kind of point of connection with the local community, even if they don't know her, the fact that she's a local girl and she's been part of it. So brilliant, really interesting. Has anybody managed to do any sort of audience testimonial stuff post-COVID? And what kind of success have you had with it? Has it been video? Has it been quotes from surveys, or how have you been sharing that with other audience members, and how has it been received?
For Junction Festival, we had a play about hurling that we put on a 3-night run, and the first night sold out. We did a lot of comps for that as well for industry. So we got testimonials that first night, and then I got the graphic designer to put together stories for our Instagram stories, which we then put out the next day and managed to sell out the next 2 shows as well. So they were really effective and they were really simple. This was great. You know, everyone should see it. The usual kind of audience testimonials you get.
And was that video, or was it just people putting comments on things?
No, we had a kind of a house style graphic visual, but our graphic designer, we got a creative agency to work on our social media with us. So it was a graphic designer and a copywriter who worked together to do all our social content.
Right.
So they took the quotes and put it on our visual identity, and it was static images that were put out, a series of stories on.
How did you collect the testimonials?
The director of Junction Arts Festival collected them by talking to people on the night. So she just sent them to me in a text the next day. It was really low key,
Great, brilliant. Anyone else want to say anything about audience testimonials and how useful they might be? I guess it's difficult, isn't it, when it's so tied to a particular show and that show's perhaps only around for 3 nights. So I suppose going back to our sort of reassurance and stuff, I would encourage you to try and get some more generic things from people. It's the first time I've been back. It feels great. I've loved it. I'm definitely going to book again. Those sort of quotes with a range of audiences. Or even being as trying to get some of the families saying, I was a bit nervous about, I mean, you can't put words in their mouths, but, I was a bit nervous about booking, but actually the book with confidence guarantee meant that I could book without any worries, and anything you can get that plays into those messages would be brilliant.
I was going to ask you whether your mother-in-law said anything about having seen the show, whether she commented on her anxiety afterwards.
She didn't, but she was much more relaxed going in after the interval. Her body language was completely different going back in after the interval than going in the first time. It was really strange to watch. So yeah, and she really, really enjoyed it and was very positive about it. So yeah, I think she's converted now. That's one more. So if somebody had their hand up there that I missed, was it Sinead? Hi, Sinead.
Hi there. I just wanted to ask a question specifically on the reassurances piece and on what we've been talking about in previous sessions and today about sort of having like a, clear messaging around your refund or exchange policy. And, you've kind of shared some great examples in the previous sessions as well. But what I found afterwards when I went looking is I didn't see any venue specifically saying, so a lot of them say if an event is cancelled, we'll refund you. I actually haven't seen any messaging anywhere saying that if you yourself get COVID, you the customer, that we will issue you with a refund or credit note, because that's something we're doing. And I thought that was what other venues were doing, but I've had a good hunt around and I didn't see any other venues saying that specifically, that if the customer themselves comes down with COVID. And obviously there is, you kind of have to trust, and we kind of had this conversation last time, you kind of have to trust that the audience member is being honest about it. But that is our policy, and I have made it more visible on the website, and we included in e-news recently. But just wondering if anybody else is going down that route of offering the refund or credit note to customers if they themselves have COVID.
Gillian.
After the last session, so our policy was always like, you don't get a refund. But since then, I've just updated it to say, look, if it's cancelled, postponed, then we use the ticket exchange tool from TicketXolve. So refund, exchange, you choose your option, whatever. But I did add a line in there that if you can't come due to COVID reasons, we'll give you a voucher and we'd appreciate 48 hours notice. Now, I'm going to be completely flexible on that 48 hours notice, but I also don't want people contacting us at 5 to 8 saying, oh, I feel sick, I can't come, because let's face it, but we haven't really made it a big splash about it. It's in our terms and conditions, and it's on the page that we have with all of the COVID notices about, we're cleaning everything and we're doing XYZ and all of that. But we haven't really done a big splash around it, but that is our policy as well.
Okay. Emma, did you want to say something about that as well? Oh, can't hear you. Oh, you're on mute, Emma.
Sorry. Our policy was to have a fully flexible refund. So if you got COVID the day of the event, you could contact us for a refund. And it was a full refund. But we didn't make a big splash about it either. It was very deep in the website. I don't think we had it on the email that went out. So it's just people who came looking for a refund that got it. So I think like next time that would be something we probably adopt, is to make a bit of a if there's still that reluctance to book ahead of time, if that's still a trend next year, hopefully not, but yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, a lot of venues over here in England have now made that a policy regardless of COVID. So, but they've tightened it up a bit more. So they've said, you know, if you can't attend for any reason, if you let us know, in some cases they're saying a week before, in some cases it's 24 or 48 hours, you can have a credit note. They're not offering them refunds unless the show is completely cancelled. And even then they try and get them to take a credit note. But they've made their policies a bit more, in one way, a bit more generous by saying you don't have to tell us the health reason or whatever reason you can't come. You can have a credit note as long as you let us know 48 hours before. But in another way, they're making it stricter by not offering refunds on that. And that's quite an interesting trend over here. Be interesting to see whether there's anything similar happening over there.
David from the Gate is saying that they've put that on all their pages. Sinead, Dave and Aoife, have you noticed anyone taking the mickey and you know, abusing that?
No, and I think it was a huge eye-opener when you asked that question the last time, and I kind of really looked at it and I talked to the marketing manager and we were like, no, people aren't taking the piss with this. So we're like, I mean, and if there are, it's, I mean, well, we've no evidence. We can't prove that they don't have COVID, but we haven't seen a massive uptick in last minute cancellations. And we've kind of made it really open now. It's on every page. Sorry, I'm just reading here, and it says, so there's book with confidence. And it says, if you or any of your party are unable to attend any performance due to COVID, you can exchange your tickets for another performance or show, or ask for a refund free of charge with no hassle. Simply let our box office team know in advance of the performance. And yeah, like we haven't noticed an uptick in cancellations and stuff. So I think it's for us, with some of the stress that we had before, where we were telling people, if you've got COVID, don't come, but then we weren't offering exchanges or refunds. We're just saying again, we will see with the next show that we have starts next week if there is suddenly a massive upsurge in last minute cancellations. I doubt it, but it's something that we'll look at. I don't think we're going to see that though.
Oh, that's really useful. Thanks, Dave. Sinead, Aoife?
Yeah, again, I think like what Dave was saying there, we haven't noticed people like taking the piss with it or anything like that. I know, and actually we have had some of our shows earlier in the year where there were large refunds and credit notes given, but you know, there were waves of COVID at the time, so you know, you trust people. I just think it is, like, my mind's telling me that it is important to get that message out there, because it is why people are wavering in booking, and you're not going to go ahead and make your booking for the evening and probably make a restaurant reservation and organize your taxis and who you're meeting. You're not going to go to all that trouble and then, you know, chicken out and ask for it's much less likely that you'll ask for a refund if you've gone ahead and made your plans. So I kind of just wanted to check where other venues doing it and get the reassurance that they are, I suppose. Yeah.
We're doing it also. I mean, we would have added it in mail out letter months ago, but I suppose we do need to focus on kind of rehashing and getting the message across. People haven't been taking the piss with it, but we have noticed this week we have a production on tomorrow, and there has been a slight increase in refunds. There hasn't been up to this, but it's really high in the community in the area at the moment. And when I say, you know, there's been an increase, I'm talking about like 3 phone calls. So it's not huge. So people are kind of respecting it, and I think they respect the offer of you know, that we're going out on a limb for them too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, we haven't really had that experience either, that people have been abusing it, you know. And I suppose it's that thing about making them feel welcome in Mermaid, and that whole thing we're trying to get across, that, you know, we'll give them the refund because hopefully they will come back when they're feeling better, you know. So it's could I ask a question? I know we're finishing up here, but just something we've picked up on. We're talking a lot today about getting people back in the door, but something that Lily, who works with me here in marketing, has highlighted to me recently is once they're actually in the door, there seems to be a huge sense of almost stress or nervousness with the whole digital ticket and the getting their phones, downloading it on the phone, and that whole experience once they're in, and maybe this is a topic for another day because I know it's 1 o'clock now, but you know, we talk about doing all this communications and marketing, we bring them in the door, and then so important that we connect with our box office and front of house teams with how that actual visitor experience is going front of house, with getting into the auditorium to see the show, because it does seem there is a slight disconnect there, that there's, you know, we're a friendly venue, it's all great, you can get your money back if you have COVID, but actually they're struggling to download. A lot of our audience, not all, are struggling with the whole we're moving to paperless ticketing, and they're actually finding the whole experience quite stressful and would rather hold out on coming back to the Arts Centre till it's back to normal again. You know, and I just found that really, really interesting after doing all this audience research, that actually, wow, we get them as far as the foyer, and then we're not saying, oh, how are you, Mary? How are you? We're saying, have you not downloaded? Click no, this link, you know, no, scroll down a bit, you know. And I was just wondering, and maybe we can pick it up at a different meeting, but are other venues experiencing that with their audience, that stressful experience of going to see a show rather than the nice experience they may have had pre-COVID? You know?
Definitely. I think we definitely need to pick that up, because I've seen it firsthand, and it is stressful. And it's especially if you can't download the tickets and you have to be on a live phone with an internet connection there in the foyer. And as we know, some theatre foyers have better Wi-Fi than others. Anyway, I'm aware we're on time. So who is going to finish up? Am I handing back to Anna or Heather?
Anna's going to tell us what next.
Listen, before we go, thank you so much, Lucy, Katie and Heather, for another session that really, I suppose, as we've listened to the session this morning, it's really, really, I think, helpful, supportive and enlightening to hear your views and to put us all on the right track to getting audiences back in bigger and better numbers. Just to preview very quickly for people, we will communicate with you and communicate these dates, but Lucy and Heather have very kindly offered to do a deeper dive into Ticketsolve data extraction and using that data effectively. The likely date is the 16th of August, but we will be in touch with you about that. We are looking at the 24th of August, I think it's a Wednesday, for a session on supercharging your promotion and launch of your autumn programme and all of the associated awareness and visibility discussions around that programme, but just in time for, you know, the early weeks of September, when the opportunity, I suppose, is greatest to make a bigger splash. And we're thinking about the 30th of September, which is the day of a Theatre Forum AGM, for the first in-person meeting of this marketing forum. And on that agenda, we will very firmly put new audiences, but new audiences maybe through the lens of climate action and sustainability. Katie and Indigo have already done a lot of work in this area with a survey that's called Act Green. But that agenda will, I suppose, shift the emphasis from these discussions to developing new audiences. And we hope to continue on with sessions through to the end of the year, including maybe a look at tour marketing for a particular tour. If any of you want to come back to us on that with suggestions about collaborations that you feel will be fruitful around marketing a tour, we'd be very happy to support that in whatever way we can. So delighted to see everybody, and thank you again, Katie, Heather and Lucy, and all of you. Good to see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.